Summer is here, and it's a great time to be hitting the water and doing a little fishing. For this week's RGT post, I wanted to talk about my favorite type of area to fish and what gear I use when I fish those areas. Personally, I love small stream fishing. I love to explore skinny waters either by foot, kayak, or by inflatable raft. I don't mind if I don't get to catch massive bass in Texas, and I didn't mind if I didn't catch massive trout in Pennsylvania. I just love catching small, unpressured native fish. If I can fly fish a certain creek or stream, whether it be for native brook trout in PA or panfish and small bass in Texas, then I'll absolutely bring my 3-weight or my 4-weight rod. But sometimes, if I'm going to be exploring a new creek and I don't know what the creek will be like, then I'll just bring my ultralight spinning rod and my tackle bag. It's actually my ultralight conventional fishing setup that I wanted to talk about today. I use the same tackle whether I'm fishing from a yak, my Flycraft inflatable raft, or if I walk in. I prefer a short rod when fishing small streams. I have a 5-foot and a 5.5-foot rod. It's tough taking a 6-foot or longer rod through the brush or trying to navigate a narrow creek with half of your rod sticking out of the side of your kayak, and it's easier to cast a shorter rod in a narrow creek. To me, I'd rather spend $40 on an ultralight ugly stick combo and be able to fish with that than drop a bunch of money on an expensive ultralight setup. I'm hard on gear, and if I careen my kayak into a bank and snap my rod tip, well, then I'd rather be out a cheaper rod than a really expensive ultralight setup. So I have an ugly stick combo that has done well for me, and it's done really well for Ellen. Ellen seems to have great luck landing big fish with that little thing. I also have a 5.5-foot ultralight gander mountain rod with a Daywell reel. Both rods are spooled with 4-pound mono, and I usually run swivel snaps on the ends of my line. So for my tackle box, I prefer the bag style that I can carry over my shoulder. That way, I can fish along a creek and keep the bag on me at all times. I can even pull lures out while it's still on my shoulder. If I'm going backpacking or if fishing is kind of secondary to a hike that I might be on, I'll just take a very small box of lures. Last week, RGT contributor Ross wrote about backpacking in the Shoshone National Forest. He brought an Altoid can full of small lures. The trick that I've found for small stream fishing is to keep it as simple as you can. The harder the stream is to get to, the less pressure the fish see, and the more likely you are to fool them into taking your lure. If you expect to catch native brook trout or panfish, a couple of spinners like meps or rooster tails in gold and silver, as well as a couple small jigs, should work just fine. If you think you could get into bigger bass, I really like a jointed shad wrap by Rapala in silver and black. I like to get them in the silver shad coloring. The JR4 is pretty good size. I'll link to all this stuff on Amazon at the bottom of this article on rootsgameandtrail.com, so that way you can check out the prices and click through to the site if you need any of this stuff. But anyway, that little lure has caught bass from northern PA to Arkansas to South Texas. Each lure is about $7, so they're expensive. I hate when I lose one, but it's going to happen. In my opinion, if you aren't losing lures, then you probably aren't fishing the right areas. The more nasty and full of structure a place is, the more likely the fish are to be there. Another lure that I really like are the 2-inch Storm Wild Eye swim baits. I really like them in the live shiner pattern, the live bluegill pattern, or the crappie pattern. So I do modify these lures. They come with a treble hook dangling off the bottom. And to me, that's pointless because a bass is just going to inhale that thing if it can. So just let the big hook coming out of the dorsal area do the work for hooking that bass. The only thing that bottom treble hook is good for is getting snagged on every single stick that it comes in contact with. So what I do is I just take a pair of wire cutters and I snip off that ring that holds the treble hook on there. So when that's done, I can work the lure close to the bottom, bounce it off stuff, and it really won't get snagged, at least not on absolutely every stick that it comes in contact with. But the most important thing to remember is to keep it simple. If you are fishing a brushy creek, You're going to lose lures, so just buy inexpensive spinners and swim baits so you don't feel like you lost your whole savings account amongst the various log jams in an unknown creek. So getting access to small streams can be tricky. National forests, game lands, or state parks are a good place to start. What I like to do is go on Google Earth and find major rivers that border or are at least close to public land. Then I find a creek or a small tributary that may flow into that main river. If that little trib is on public land, then all I'll do is hike in and I can fish from the bank. If everything around the trib is private land, that's where it can get tricky. I'll keep looking on Google Earth and I'll follow the trib upstream until I find a road that crosses the trib. If it looks like I can park a vehicle on the shoulder without issues, then I'll launch my kayak or flatcraft from that bridge. You just have to recruit a friend to go with you, and then you'll have a shuttle vehicle. It's likely that the major river that you will float down to will have boat access ramps and stuff like that, at least a place to take out. So it's usually fairly easy to find a takeout spot. Exploring new, small creeks is a blast. It's great to catch unpressured fish, but it's equally as much fun to just explore new water. Sometimes exploring can be difficult, and you may have to portage more than you expected, but a little bit of suffering like that can make the trip that much more memorable and fun. Anyway, that's it for this week. If you have any tips, recommendations, questions, or stories that you'd like to share about fishing small creeks, feel free to write a comment at the bottom of the page. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you can get out and explore some of the small, beautiful little creeks that this country has to offer.